And we are going to start off today just a little bit earlier than you're used to hearing me. Once again, voice of the Thoroughbreds, Chris McSwiggan, is here with you. It is Between the Reins. We got another episode. This is actually episode 9. I was incorrect before. No show last week. For those of you who were texting me and asking, hey, who do you have on this week? I was in Florida. I was not here, so unable to come on and entertain you guys last week. But I don't want to say saving the best for last because we did have some reschedules and things. So I do have a couple more shows after this. But somebody I did kind of want to go out with a bang a little bit with school right around the corner ending anyway. And that is the one who makes it all possible. Like we've started with way back in February with Coach Bostic. And then obviously Coach Burke reached out. And from there, they've hooked me up with various players. I had Peter Fisher on. That was a cool one.
Yep.
Lindsey King, different administrators and coaches. But the one who kind of makes all of that possible, and that is Miss Gail Cummings-Danson, the athletic director here at Skidmore. And honestly, the one who kind of made it possible for me as well, because again, without her signature, none of this stuff could happen. So, and I'm going into my 12th season. Weirdly enough, it's crazy.
Believe that.
Right, 12th season this coming February. And I usually tailor it with Kelly Donnelly. I remember Kelly Donnelly was my first year. I watched all 4 years of her, and that was 2014. So, it'll be 12 seasons. It's crazy
shocking
how that goes. But once again, we are here with Miss Dancer, or Mrs., I guess, Danson. But one thing I wanted to know from you, and there's just so many things when I went on to kind of do some research about you and kind of your history. So you're originally from Canada.
Yeah.
Okay. And you originally were a lacrosse player.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to me because a lot of people, they don't associate Canada with lacrosse. It's actually the national sport.
Thank you.
Yes, for the summer national sport. Anyway,
correct.
Which
But
I did know.
I'll just say, before it became the summer national sport, it was always
the full national. Okay. Well, hockey, you got to kind of have hockey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was never officially hockey. It was always lacrosse, and they added hockey.
Which a lot of people didn't know.
Correct.
I only knew because my father played it.
It's a piece of the pie for what's that game? Oh, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It'll come to me
game.
randomly. I'll just blurt it out at some point throughout. But I remember. Yeah. But I only know that because my father actually played at Syracuse. So he was a lacrosse player, and I tried to play a little bit in high school, but I was always more football, basketball. But yeah, no, great sport. Now, were you attack, midfield?
No. So it's a long story.
Okay.
So I grew up. Yes. First, let me just say thanks, Chris.
Oh, yes, no problem.
Thank you for having me on, and I appreciate the opportunity. But also, were you saying 12 years? That just blows my mind.
Yeah,
because I remember when you first started, but I would not say that was 12 years ago. I would have said, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6.
5 or 6, yeah.
Pre-COVID.
I was a little skinnier back then too. Yeah.
We all were.
Yeah.
But no. So to your question, I grew up in Canada, and in Canada, that's what you do. You play box lacrosse. No, not or. You do both. Box lacrosse on a boys team because their girls teams didn't really exist. So box lacrosse on a boys team in the summer and ice hockey in the winter, and that's just what I would say every good Canadian does.
Okay, fair enough.
That's how that started.
No, Huntsville, Ontario.
Yeah.
Is that Toronto metro?
No.
Okay.
No. That's 3 hours north of Toronto.
Oh wow. Okay, so up boy, so snow country.
So
okay.
Yeah, cottage country. We like to call
okay. So this past winter we had was nothing new to you then?
No, but my blood's gotten a little thinner.
Has it? Okay.
Over time because I've been down here so long. It felt like a cold winter.
Yeah, it definitely was, especially since we had such a mild couple of winters the previous few. So, so coming from Canada, then you went to Temple University.
Yeah.
Was there anything in between, or did you just go straight from Canada to Temple?
Well, so
like for college.
We have time. You want the long story? You want the short version?
We got an hour.
It's okay.
I can even maybe go a little longer depending on who's coming up next. So,
well, let me give you a medium version of it.
Okay.
So, yes, I grew up playing on a boys team.
Okay.
I thought box lacrosse was my first love, right? So you've seen it played. It's
I have,
It's very different.
Albany had Firewolves.
That's right.
I think they're called
very different than field lacrosse, right?
It is.
And so I was one of 2 girls on our team.
Okay.
Started playing when I was 8.
Oh wow.
And so that's just what I did. And when I was going to be midget age, which is 16 years old,
They call it midget?
That's what it's called. It goes Pee Wee Bantam midget.
Oh, so like hockey kind of.
Exactly like hockey, yep. And when I was going to be the midget age, right, I still was playing, but my father, when I was going to have to be junior the next year, my father said, you're going to have to stop playing box lacrosse. And I'm like, no, I can't. I mean, this is what I do.
So much different.
But obviously, when you go to junior, you're talking 17 to 21-year-olds. Like that's the age group, right?
So, you were what?
I would have been 16.
So a little under. Okay.
Yeah. So, so he said, but I said, how do you, like, what am I going to play? And he's like, we'll find a team. So lo and behold, he found a team of a women's field lacrosse team down in Toronto.
Okay.
So at the time I was 15, I didn't even have my driver's license yet. Oh, wow. And he would drive me down to Toronto for practice and a tryout and all of that. And so for my final year of playing box lacrosse, I then started playing women's field lacrosse as well.
Was it a tough transition? Like it was
the rules were. So I played defense as a box lacrosse player. No.
Oh, there was no
box lacrosse. No.
Oh, see, I'm used to regular lacrosse.
No,
okay.
No. It's 6-on-6, right? Just like a hockey game.
So you had to transition then to a long stick as well, or is that girls lacrosse doesn't have
long sticks? But I was always worried that I was going to cross check someone because that's the natural movement, right? So I thought I should play attack or forward in women's lacrosse, and that's what I did. Having never played forward before in my life, and that's I guess where that journey started. And so at 15, was asked to try out for the Canadian national team, getting ready for the World Championship. Nice. This was like dark ages. Back in 1982 was going to be the first World Championship for women's lacrosse. It was over in England. And so went out to British Columbia, tried out for the team, made the team at 15. By the time we competed in the World Championship, I was 16. And that is where some players on the U.S. national team, all older, right? I was the youngest person in the tournament, all older, who were already coaching and things like that, suggested that I should come down to the U.S. and try out for a team. I didn't know how that happened because, again, it's very different in Canada, right? Sure. So, and that's
try out for like an AAU or try out for
try out for like I should go to college.
Oh, and try it that way. Okay. Yeah.
And I said, how would that work?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you would get a scholarship. I'm like, what does that mean? Again, all stuff that doesn't really happen in Canada. Yeah. It's very different.
Well, it does now or still not even really?
It does. No, there's no.
Not as much?
No, like there's always financial aid.
Yeah,
right?
but like athletic scholarships.
No, they don't exist. Okay. Huh. So that's how I ended up coming down to the U.S. And so my thought process there was, if I'm going to come all the way down, and I looked at a bunch of different schools, that doesn't mean they were all interested in me. So like, don't let me set the stage incorrectly. Sure. But the athletic trainer for the U.S. team was from Temple, and that's who I was in a conversation with. And I said, well, which teams are good? Because I didn't even know. She said, oh, Temple's got a really good team. I said, well, if I'm going to go down, then I should try out for the best team I think I can try out for.
Yeah, why not? I
shoot for the top. Temple won the national championship
I was just going to say, did you win a national title? Yeah.
Well, but they won it before I got there.
Okay, so you did. You were part of the title team.
Let me try and. Oh, I did. No, we did. Oh, but they won it before I got there.
Oh, so that's kind of what turned you on to, wow, so this is a team that was...
Yeah, if they're the best, then they're the best. Let me go there, and that's how I ended up in
My dad would be jealous. He actually played at Syracuse from 80 to 82.
Oh, so right before the Gates brothers.
Yep, and they went to, the national semis and whatever, but then they won the national title the year after he graduated. Yeah. Which was
so it's just timing. Yeah. There's no guarantees, right? Because
that's like what happened to me in high school. We lost in the in basketball, but state semis, state corners, state semis, and then my freshman year of college, I won the state title. It's like great.
Well, the team won before I got there. My freshman year, we went to the Final Four. We went to the Final Four each of my 4 years.
Oh wow!
And we were in the championship game my junior year. We lost.
Okay.
And then finally won it my senior year. So I'm lucky to have gotten out of there with the championship, right? So
big transition difference from so you said it's kind of out in the country. You mentioned it being cottage country a little bit up there. Temple's right in the heart of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I loved it.
So okay.
Yeah,
that transition.
Yeah, I mean, you're either going to love it or you're not, right? Sure. And so if you're a country person, maybe you're going to have a harder transition. But I wanted to try the city, and I loved it. So I look at Temple University, fantastic institution, not a campus for everybody, right?
No, well, it's a city campus, and that's not always like it's not something like what we have here at Skidmore. It's there's more. You're right in the heart of everything. Yeah. Drexel is another one that's really kind of right there.
Penn, all of them.
You know, Villanova's a little bit more suburban.
Oh,
but
not a little more. That's main line. That's totally different.
That's suburban?
Totally different.
Okay. Well, I know that's another school in the Philly area.
Yes, and St. Joe's is on the cusp of main line as well. But your inner city schools in Philly are going to be Drexel, Penn, and LaSalle.
LaSalle, you have the Explorers. Yep. Okay. Huh. Yep. See, I don't know too much about Philly. I just know that I hate Philly because I'm a Cowboys fan.
Oh, okay. Well, that's why. Yeah,
and it's just they've been so good recently.
Yeah.
So it's nothing but the city. Yeah. It's just I did go one time for I actually went down for a media thing when I was at Connecticut School of Broadcasting. We went down actually to film lacrosse in Maryland, and we were at McDaniel, I believe it was, and we're driving back. We're like, let's stop at Philly for some cheesesteaks.
Oh, because why not?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And this was before, phones really had maps and GPSs and stuff. And we were like, yeah, we know where we're going. It's just one highway in, one highway out. And all of a sudden, we get our stuff. We see the basketball court that Will Smith, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was filmed on and all that. And with Geno's, went to the tourist one, And we get there and all of a sudden we're driving and, it was row houses and all the things. And all of a sudden, we're looking out the window, and it's like boarded up buildings and graffiti and holes in the wall and all. And I'm like, I don't think this is Philly anymore. And we stopped at a gas station. We're like, hey, where are we? And I go, you're in Camden.
Crossed over the water.
Yeah, we went the wrong way. So from then on, I was like, first of all, next time I'm driving.
Yeah.
Secondly, we're using GPS
because
this is scary
at that point.
But no, I did like Philly going there and seeing it and everything.
It's a great city. I mean,
it is.
Yes, the fans are a little out of control, right? We probably saw a little bit of that last night with the Flyers Penguins game.
A little bit, but that's an interstate thing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's such opposites. I mean, you see it with Steelers Eagles when they play too. But Philly
they're
fans
passionate is what I would say.
Yes, and I spent some time in the Boston area as well, and I know the Boston area can be that way.
Yeah,
a little bit more prim and proper because it's Massachusetts and it's New England, but they can be very rowdy as well.
And isn't that what you want with your fan base? You want a passionate fan base.
Yes, I do.
Not out of control, but controlled passion.
Yeah, well. I don't know if Philly's controlled passion when it comes to the Eagles.
No, because they're snowballing Santa. So
they're putting batteries in the snowball and throwing them at Santa. Things like that. It's the only stadium in the league that has a jail in the stadium.
Yeah.
But no, I do know what you're saying because I went to private school, CBA, local league down here in Albany, and that was always kind of like respect everybody, don't get too crazy. And I get to college out in Oneonta, and Hartwick had football, Oneonta State didn't. So the big rivalry was basketball.
Yeah.
And we play my freshman year, coming from, proper CBA, respect everybody, cheer, but nothing derogatory and all that, to, the starting lineups being announced at Hartwick, for Hartwick at Oneonta State, right across the street, and the entire student section in general, turning their backs to the court.
Yeah.
During our starting lineups. And I'm like, that's a little weird, right? And then stuff being thrown over the top of the court to the other section where the other student section was. They had to stop the game several times. There was fights. There was different things. And, one school's chanting safety school with the other one. And it's just, and I'm like, this is crazy. I was like, and this is D3.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't even imagine, because my mom would tell me stories. Both my parents went to Syracuse. Yeah. And they would tell me stories of like the Georgetown-Syracuse rivalries and things like that. And I always thought it sounded pretty cool. Yeah. But then when you're part of it, you're like, this is wild. I just want to play.
Well, so, if I fast forward to my current role, I would prefer to see our fans cheer for our players instead of against the opponent.
Which Skidmore's been pretty good at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they've got a great fan base. I don't really think anybody in the Liberty League has been too outright obnoxious when it comes to that. I think at least that I've seen.
Depends on each student section. There's a couple of schools that
we don't have to name them, but
we won't.
No, we won't.
But there are a couple schools that have a loud student section as well.
A little rowdy, I guess you can call it. Yeah. And so what I'll do is I'll do pieces of that. So just for YouTube, it's easier to do 5-minute increments than it is to do a full hour-long video. But the audio will be up. So looking at some of the things here, I mean, obviously we're on lacrosse right now, so we'll stick with that, and then we'll get to what brought you here. But
sure.
Part of the U.S. Women's Lacrosse Association, you were involved with lacrosse also at Albany, I believe, as well.
Yeah. So coaching wise, I out of grad school, I was a volunteer assistant at Temple.
Yep. And you did grad school at Temple also?
Yeah.
Okay, so both there. Okay.
Yeah, 3. My doctorate's from there as well.
Oh, okay, so all 3 at
all
Temple.
3, yeah.
So you just loved the city that much. Okay.
My claim to fame there is that I've never paid for an actual credit.
Hey, and why not? Yeah, great.
Fiscally, I would never encourage someone to go to the same institution for three degrees, but I also have not paid for a credit.
If I could have stayed at Hartwick for that long, I would have. You know, so I get it.
I did the doctorate when I came back as an administrator, but when I was doing my master's, I was a volunteer. From there, I left to become an assistant AD, head lacrosse coach, assistant field hockey coach at Connecticut College. So that's where I got my.
Okay, yeah. I said to think of
very much like
GPS,
Skidmore.
Yeah.
Right?
I know a lot of different colleges. Like I've seen hundreds of different colleges throughout my media time, and I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, I know what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Great school, very much like Skidmore. And then when I left there, I went back to Temple as an assistant athletic director, no coaching.
So did you seek out Albany, or did they?
No. So that's an interesting story. So while I was at Temple, the athletic director at UAlbany, who had Temple ties, worked at Temple for a while before he went to Kansas State. He contacted me because I worked in compliance at Temple, NCAA compliance, and they wanted to transition from Division 3 to 2 to 1. So he asked if I would come on board, and then part of my duties, because they were still Division 3 at the time, would be as the head women's lacrosse coach. So I did both.
And you also helped to kind of facilitate and bring them into a Division 1 institution.
So So what happened there was there was an AD change, and I happened to be serving as the interim for about 15 months as their first year of Division 1. We were not in a conference at that time. We were seeking conference affiliation. And so that's the first year of Division 1 was with me at the helm.
And do you notice it's a little different on the D1 level than it is at the D3 level?
Yeah.
Because, now you have all this experience now at Skidmore and D3 and all that, and Albany previously. It's more paperwork? A lot more.
Well, there's more paperwork, but generally speaking, the staff is larger, and there could be more sports, but not always, right? Because there's some Division 3 schools that have like 33 and 34 sports, so that's not always true. And I would say that as the competitiveness has increased over time, Division 3 is probably competitively where Division 1 was maybe 15 years ago, right? Because not every student that is on a Division 3 campus is what some would call a Division 3 athlete. There are Division 1 athletes on Division 3 campus. That used to never happen like that, right? And they've just been really intentional about their academic decision and why maybe they've chosen to go to a school that happens to be a Division 3 school that they want to compete at.
And not all of one thing I've noticed is sometimes with the big athletic programs at the D1 level, academics might not be. Any college, if you go to college, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I guess, reputation of academics, some of them aren't quite as up to par with some others. And I notice that D3 is a lot of the same. Like the Liberty League is a great athletic and academic conference.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Empire 8. Now that's been all blown up and they're all different now. Yeah. But when I was there, and the NESCAC and things like that, they're all great schools, but they also have good programs. Yeah. You look at some, D1 conferences and you're like, well, that's a great team, but, academically, and I've also noticed too that like there's the big time athletes, at least the ones that I've talked to, from those programs, they're not held to the same academic standards.
Yeah.
A lot of the times too, because they're there, especially in today's landscape, which we'll get into, but it's like, D1 athletics, at least basketball, but you see it now in football too. It's almost like free agency.
Yeah.
There are people that are at a different school every 4 years. They just go for the money now.
Yeah.
And they go to, there's no, I go in, I'm academically there, or if you go for like Carmelo Anthony, I'll go back to Syracuse here for a second. He was on campus for 6 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then he went to the NBA draft. So it's just a little different with the big time athletes at D3 and the big time athletes at D1.
Well, you can't lose sight of the fact that you have to be there to get a degree, right? So I'm never one to comment on another institution's academics, but
I would debate that. I don't know if we have time for it today because we only have an hour, but there are definitely guys there who are not there for a degree.
100%. But
you're
what
supposed
I'm saying
to be
is
there
institutionally
for
and department-wise,
they think so.
We can't lose sight of the fact.
No, of course.
That's why students are there, and we should be promoting and advocating for that all the time, right?
Yes.
So the decision making that we have to make, the decisions that we have to make should be centered around academics first.
Should.
Yes. And then athletics, right? And I would say Skidmore does just
absolutely.
that, right?
Yeah. I mean, top 30 nationally, at least that's that I read.
But it's what it should be, right?
Yeah.
It's how it should operate. And what I would say that at Division I, some of these schools, there's a lot more flexibility around how their students are taking classes. Because, there are some really top-notch students at Division I.
Oh, of course.
Institutions that are competing in sports, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Really I'm not, my example wasn't all of them.
Oh, no,
it was a small crop.
There's always going to be those, right? And I think it's our job to make sure that we're reminding them of what their first priority should be.
And I like that, and that's kind of why I liked being in D3 athletics as well. I did some work at Becker before Becker closed. That's actually kind of the ties I had with Coach Bostic. And, I just know that the D3 level, I went through the 4 years. I was that, and I was like, okay, this is cool because you're a student athlete. You know what I mean? And that's why they still call it student athlete, because it's a privilege to play a sport at a school.
Absolutely.
And it's not everybody's going to do it. I know there's a lot of friends that I had that I was really tight with at Hartwick that didn't make teams.
Yeah.
They still went to class and still had to do all that, but they didn't get a chance as much. And, so that it makes you look at it and go, wow, okay, I should be thankful for this and put my mind to this. But at the end of the day, I'm just like them. I have to go to class too and get a good grade and do all that stuff as well. So,
and nobody should ever feel like being a part of a team is a chore, right? You're doing it because you love it, because you want to participate, because that's the experience you want. It shouldn't be a chore. So it is a privilege because not everyone can do it, and not everyone's good enough to do it. And it's a small percentage that come out of high school that are able to do it.
And so not only were you on a national championship team, you're All-American as well.
Correct.
So did being an athlete, pretty much your entire life, did that kind of shape how you are today with maybe some values, the way you look at things, like the whole team aspect and community and culture aspect of things?
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think there's I don't know what the right word is, not an opportunity in a club, an organization, or whatever, an experience that you can replicate that would replicate what athletics can offer you, life skill wise, right?
Sure.
So being a part of a team, you can be in individual sports and you're going to operate in a different way. But once you come to college and you are on a team, even in an individual sport, you're part of a team, right?
Oh, yes.
The skill set that you need to navigate being a part of a team and what you learn and how you operate, how you accept culture, work hard, work towards changing your role if you're not happy with it, all of that, right? I mean, you have to develop those skills over time, and you are going to be better prepared for life because you've been a part of an athletic team.
Do you think coaching as well?
Conflicts.
That's the main one, and handling adversity in that way. But do you think that coaching kind of was an influence to your administrative style as well, having that coaching background?
I mean, I've never really looked at it that way, but for me, I think it's all one big package, right? Because in the same way that you are a coach of a team, an athletic administrator is the coach of
what they do.
It is a team
because they have a team under them.
As a team, right? So depending on how many sports you have, but you have to get everybody moving in the same direction, on the same page. They might not be completely on the same page because there might be nuances for their particular sport or how they have to operate. But it's a team approach. It has to be, because especially at the Division III level, because that's how you're going to navigate. It's not like every sport has their own facility that they are in charge of or have access to, right? Everything's a shared a shared experience.
No,
so.
D2 I don't have a whole lot of experience with.
Yeah.
And I probably could name you a D2 school, but from your, I guess, experience now with all a whole gamut of athletics, what really is like, so you hear about the big schools that you hear about, that people know about in towns and cities and different things. Usually they're D1 or they're D3.
Yeah.
Really, so for D2, what is that, like, why is that not known as much, you think?
I think it's sort of that in between. There are fewer schools, for sure,
okay, yeah.
right? Definitely fewer schools, and they're sort of crossed between wanting to compete at the biggest level, meaning Division I. So they do want to offer scholarships. They might not have the funding or the resources to do that, but they know they want to, and yet they don't want to be Division III, which is no scholarships, right? Merit aid or financial aid.
So it's kind of, so like, I guess the difference really is they can give maybe kind of partial scholarships.
Well, they can give you a full ride.
They can give you a full, okay.
Absolutely, but they might only have 3 of those.
Oh, I see. Instead of 30 or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. So because I was always wondering, I was like, you see D2 and you know it's a division, but you don't hear about it as often. So that's why I was always like, I could name you, probably rattle off 50 to 100 D3 schools and D1 schools right now.
Yeah.
Maybe tell you one D2, so I was always kind of curious about that.
I'm sure if you had a Division II athletic director sitting right here, they would be able to spout off like all the values that Division II bring to the table.
But Albany you didn't go from D3 to 2 to 1. You did go to 2.
You have to do that, right?
I wasn't sure if you could just make the leap.
No, you cannot. You have to transition and you have to follow the rules and the more stringent rules at each level. So if in particular a Division III rule happens to be more stringent than a Division II rule, while you're transitioning, you have to follow the 3 rule.
Okay.
But if the 2 rule is more stringent and you're in transition, then you have to follow the Division II rule. So that is why you need someone paying attention to the rules, because as you transition then from 2 to 1, it's the same thing. Always have to follow the more stringent
compliance stuff and different things. Okay, which I can imagine is a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
Especially with the NCAA and how they've been recently with stuff. So lacrosse was a big thing. I know that you had overlooked no, I shouldn't say overlooked, because that's you were in charge of overseeing, I guess is the better word. The remodeling of the softball fields and the resurfacing of Wackenheim over here, as well as a big part of the new workout center that's right near the tennis courts and everything. It was all happened under your tenure. We'll get to those in just a sec. But Skidmore, you went. So we talked about Temple, and then obviously Connecticut College into Albany. Now Skidmore, I know it's still kind of local compared to Albany, but what brought you to Skidmore? And did you start off as an AD, or did you start at a different position?
No, I started here as the athletic director.
Okay.
And that was back in 2005.
Yep.
And for me, I think I was I'd been at UAlbany. I was in my 12th year. Finishing up my 11th, transitioning into my 12th. And so the timing for change maybe was right.
Okay.
I live in Clifton Park, so it's a matter of going down the highway or up the highway.
Sure.
And Skidmore, great Division III institution at that point. And you could see at that moment, even back then, where Division I was heading. Okay. And my values always aligned with Division I. That's what I played, right? That's what I knew. But as Division I started to change, I could also see that my values were becoming more aligned with Division III around degrees, academics, the importance of being excelling in both, and the ability to excel in both, and the expectation to do that, right? And so when the opportunity became available at Skidmore, I said, let me see if I can't land that, and I was fortunate enough to do that.
And obviously you haven't looked back since. It's been over 2 decades now, and it's one of those things where you almost fall in love with the place when you've been here for so long. What was it like? What was it just like? Hey, Skidmore is open. Let me give it a shot. Or was there something about the school that really kind of, outside of what you mentioned with the transition from one to 3? The school itself that really kind of drew you in, or was it at the time just a job that you wanted to pursue?
No, I would say a little bit of both. I mean, I think I could definitely see the potential. And when I say potential, I don't mean to suggest even for a minute that the teams at Skidmore weren't doing well. They were.
No, yeah, of course.
They absolutely were before I got here, right? But you could see the potential for what Skidmore was going to become as far as, growing institutionally, but also athletically, and the commitment that it was going to potentially make, right? I mean, that's always a gamble. You don't know that for sure, but I could listen to the conversation and engage in conversations where that was discussed, right? So who doesn't want to be around that? It's in a great city or town. Yeah. Small cities, large town. However you want to
I mean, they call it a city, but
they do.
I mean, I look at it as a town, but they call it a city.
It's fantastic.
Oh,
right?
It's great.
So,
yeah.
So with that, in addition, you could see that the potential was certainly there. And so, when then you are offered the opportunity to come for an interview, you get to meet a few more of the athletic people, hear from faculty, et cetera. Then you're like, okay, this is like a diamond opportunity. So
did you ever think it would be, going on 20 years?
No, never, because that's just not what happens in athletics.
Okay.
Right? Like you tend to move around.
Which I've noticed. I always think, I would be here forever. Yeah. But I noticed that's not the case. Well, and it's funny
because that's what the industry does, but that's just not also my personality. Like I'm never searching for a job. If I'm happy in my job, there's no reason to search for a job. That's how I feel. So, I mean, does that mean that I got everything that I ever wished for here? No, right? But that's a process.
I don't think that's something that really anybody could expect to have happen.
Not at all. And so I'm realistic about that, right?
Yeah.
And
if that were the case, I'd be on ESPN right now.
Right.
I mean, I was, but that's a story of another time. The show's featured on you, not on me. But it's different.
But it's true, right? And so I don't. I'm like, if there's a reason for me to be looking because I feel like I need a change, then that's something different. But once I got here, I didn't feel like I needed to look. So
nice.
I've always been working with great people. Been fortunate to work for two great presidents. Always had a great vice president that I was under their umbrella. So, like, why would I be looking to leave?
No, I'm not necessarily looking to leave. It's just like when you're
looking for the next
you start
adventure.
A position, and then all of a sudden you look back on it now, and you're like, wow, 05, like that was 20 years ago going on. And you're like, when you start something, you think, all right, I'm going to be doing this for a while. I don't think you realize how long of a tenure that is.
Yeah. Which is why I'm so tired, which is why it's the right time for me to retire.
Well, that's what we're going to get into right at the end. We're going to say you are going to be, hanging it up this year. And is somebody else in place or?
No, the search is ongoing.
Search is ongoing. Okay.
It has started.
All right. I was going to say who's going to be the next athletic director. I was like, it's okay if you say me. It's fine.
That's right. Did you throw your hat in the ring?
No, I did not yet. Okay. So I'm sure we'll find somebody. And you're part of that search as well.
No, I'm not part of the search.
You're not part of the search.
That's intentional. Nobody should be selecting their next,
I just didn't know how that works.
No.
I didn't know if that was kind of...
No, but helpful however they need me to be. But look, we've got representation from our athletic department on the search committee. So they're going to have a great pool of candidates. Not a question in my mind. It's a great position.
Oh, yeah.
Great administrators.
It's the top position when it comes to athletics. So, it's something that anybody that's a sports fan would love.
Right? So there's always going to be an AD at a school, but you want to make sure that
it's the perfect storm.
Yeah.
You got to have it be everything.
Great school, great location. Yep. Working for a great president and vice president. So,
and that always helps too, because I know I have my roommate at Hartwick is the D coordinator for the football team out there, and he's still out there on Oneonta and everything. And like you mentioned, the president and vice president, he has battles all the time because they are thinking of cutting down on some athletics. And he's like, football has been like, this is my job. Like I stayed out here to be with football. Now the president's like, well, we might end up cutting football.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he's looking at, and there's just been a headbutting between those two. And he tells me sometimes how stressful that can be when you commingle on a campus every day or meetings or different things. Yeah. And there's that tension there. And so
that's about financial decisions that need to be made
I could still be tension though.
Oh, it absolutely is a tension, but the same tension could be said for institutions that have to cut academic departments and higher ed. That's the moment that we're in right now, right? Sure. Everyone's paying attention to their finances. They need to. Yeah. The number of students across the country, that number has gone down, right? So everybody's looking to get the same student. We're all fighting for the same student, and so that becomes the tension.
It's
and
like
you have
coaches,
to cut your budget
like when coaches have to recruit players. It's kind of like with you guys trying to recruit students. I can see it's sort of a similar process.
Yeah, well, it absolutely is the same. So what's going to win out, and how do you attract and encourage the best students to want to come here?
So I should know this, but you created the Thoroughbred Society.
Yeah.
What exactly is that? So
that is a celebration of our students who perform outstandingly, if you will, in the academic arena.
Sure. Okay.
With a 3.67 or higher for the semester.
Nice.
And then we celebrate them, and we celebrate them every semester that they do that. Right. So I couldn't even tell you what year we started that, but it was pretty early on. And that's again just getting back to what we should be celebrating. Right. We athletic departments have always celebrated athletic accomplishments.
They have,
right?
Yeah. I mean, everyone does it differently, but
absolutely. But that's just ingrained in an athletic department. But can we also celebrate their academic accomplishments? Because again, that's what they're here to do, and they can do both. And we have so many examples on this campus of students that
I see constantly players that I know that I call every week that are part of the D3 honor society or the academic honors or the whatever.
Well, and the funny thing is that it matters to them. Like you've done it for a few years, way back when, and you don't know, like, is this really something the students are paying attention to? Do they really care about this? Like, we know we care about it, but do they care about it? They're just doing their thing. But the number of times that I've gotten an email from a student that says, does a 3.666 round up to a 3.67? And I'm like, see, now they're all competitors, so you dangle a carrot in front of them, whatever that is, they're competitive.
Technically, it's over 3.5, so you'd say probably, right?
Well, at the time, that was honors here.
Okay.
It was a 3.67.
Okay.
That's what it, so we're going to.
What is it now?
Well, I think it's 3.75.
Okay.
But we just never changed our number because that was the number
That was what you went with, yeah.
And so it's always been a 3.67, and that's who we celebrate. And we have over 200 students. Every semester achieving that.
Students and who are also athletes, or just in general?
200 athletes.
Athletes who achieve, which is great.
So we have about 420 athletes, and 210 are our Thoroughbred Society recipients.
Which is great.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I know that work-life balance in real life can be tough. I know work-life balance in terms of schoolwork and athletics, especially a school that does kind of demand academics as well, can be difficult.
Right.
I know for me, I ended up, I think I had like a 3.4, 3.5, something like that by the time I ended everything. But I talked with Ruby Kropp. She was on. I know she does a lot of work with students and things. And, Peter has the DEI stuff and, a lot of stuff that work outside of the athletics department in with the students. It's nice to see that a school does kind of go out of their way to focus on kind of being there for the students, but the students also care, like you mentioned, about academics. Because like for me, we went in and it was like back in, this was 06 to 2010. It was starting to get that way, but it was we were there. We were the athletes. We were the jocks. This is what we're here for. We play sports. School's not hard. We'll pass. We'll be all right, you know? And then you look at it, you're like, next thing you know, you're looking at it, you're like, all right, I have like a 2 something. I was like, I need to focus a little bit more. And then, and then eventually you get, I think the way, unfortunately, the culture coming from CBA, which was the same way, where you couldn't play unless you had a 3.2 or something. Going to college, and then you get the party life, and you're away from home, and you get the athletics, and you're just like, I was a good student in high school, I'll be fine. And then it catches up to you, and you're like, as long as I'm over that threshold to be allowed to play, I'm good. And it wasn't until my junior year where I was like, maybe I should take this more seriously, because I'm not going to the NBA or the NFL, and I need to be able to get something out of this instead of just focusing, being in a library more than I'm in the gym, So I do like the fact that there's students that are so focused on that, but also a campus that kind of promotes that as well. Because for us, it was just kind of like, I think I'll go to class. All right, you're gonna fail.
Yeah,
Oh
well, no, so that's never going to be okay, right?
Yeah,
Because
but
even the
unfortunately,
NCAA rules.
that's how it felt in some ways. Where I know it wasn't maybe that way, but maybe it felt like, all right,
less important.
Students are holding the administration isn't going to come out and say, hey, you got to do this. They'll just be like, hey, get your homework done, do everything, do what you got to do, and we were just like, okay, and went and did our own thing. It wasn't as demanding, I guess, and it didn't have the programs like a Thoroughbred Society. There was no, you made the honor roll, cool, but there was no celebration of that to honor them and give them something for that. It was just like, oh, cool, I made the dean's list, awesome, Well, and they didn't value it as much.
When I started that, it was more like, we have a bunch of competitors here. How do we want them to compete in the classroom as well? Yeah. And it was just trying to tie into what they're already driven to do, because they're athletes, they're competitive.
Well, which is great, because I would have been the same way, because I'm super competitive with everything. So I would have been like, show me what I gotta get that. What? Yeah. Who doesn't want that? Plug it into the wall, let it make noise, and I'm good.
But what I'll also say is that I think one of the focuses that we have is for our students to be performing at their best, right? So whatever their best is, and everyone's best is going to be a little different, right? So we might have a student that achieves Thoroughbred Society every semester, but they're not doing their best work because they're actually capable of a 3.9. So how are we going to get you motivated to do your best, right? Yeah. Where we might have a student who really is busting their butt, and the best that they're going to achieve is a 2.7, because that's just where they are. Their preparedness coming out of high school, whatever that is, right? And so we want to celebrate that as well. We want to celebrate everybody's best effort, not just an effort, but their best effort.
Yeah, which is again, fantastic, because that just wasn't a thing.
Yeah,
for me.
I totally agree.
What I mean? It just wasn't. You had to take it into your own account and care for yourself. Instead of something like that, and which I get, and in a way I see both sides. In a way, it's kind of like, well, no one's going to hand you things in life; you got to go get it yourself. But then I also look at it as everyone kind of needs a little bit of that boost.
But if you don't know that it exists, how do you even go after it? So that's where I stand with, right? And what we've done is there's not anything sort of special to it other than tapping into the resources that are already across campus.
But sometimes that's what it takes.
Absolutely. So that's the specialness of it. If there is a specialty, is that we look at what those resources are. And we want to make sure that our students know that they're available, have access to them, and are encouraged to go seek them out. And our students do a really good job of that.
And, with Skidmore being in a competitive academic conference as well as athletic, sometimes you need to kind of have those things in place too. Because, you're looking at schools that are, darn near Ivy League when it comes to academics, at least that we play every week, So you gotta kind of have that standard. And I'm looking at it now and I'm like, between what you've told me, what Peter Fisher told me, some of the programs he's involved in, even some of the students who have done, student on a student-to-student, peer-to-peer level. I'm just like that. It just makes it even more special, because I'm looking at it going, we never had that. So that's really cool.
But what's really special about a Skidmore student, though, right, is that they genuinely care for each other, right?
Which I've found too.
That competitiveness is not happening in the classroom. Like, I'm not so cutthroat that I want to be on a bell curve because I need to beat you as far as my grade. Like, if we both can achieve well, like, I'm thrilled with that. And that's a Skidmore student. I'm going to help you get your best grade if I can also get my best grade, right?
Which is awesome.
Yeah, that's just a Skidmore student, and I think that's fantastic.
And I think that's a certain type of student, I think, from the admissions department too, of what they're looking at when people come in and things. So not just athletically. What have you, with all the things you've overseen, the faculty, facility upgrades, can't read today, facility upgrades, staff expansion, program growth, what would you say now with the twilight upon us that you're probably most proud of?
That's a great question, because I don't, so I would say I'm most proud of our team. Just our team of coaches, our team of administrators.
Okay.
Yes, all of our student athletes, but that's our coaches out there recruiting, right? And so I can't take credit for that. They're out there every day, but busting butt to try and get the best student athletes they can, right? So we genuinely have a very good culture, I would say, in athletics. You know our structure. We're all down one hallway. Everybody's in and out of each other's hallways. And so when we have a coach leave, and I'll give you an example, Beth Hallenbach is retiring at the end of May. Yep. So we had to, went through a search. Field hockey, yep. And so our coaches are involved, our staff are involved in that search process because we want the best colleague down the hallway as well. And the great thing is that when we're interviewing candidates and they ask us what it's like, that's the easiest part for us to talk about because it's true. I mean, that doesn't mean everybody gets along every day of every minute,
I mean,
right?
there's always going to be humans are humans.
Absolutely. Yeah. But genuinely across the board, everybody wants success for each other because I know that if a coach 2 doors down from me has a successful year, that's going to help me recruit because who doesn't want to be here for all teams to be successful? So that's what I would say I'm most proud of. But like we've done, a lot has happened during my tenure. I wouldn't say necessarily because of me, but just the timing of me being here and the transition.
Things that you were part of.
Yeah, Skidmore was in this transitional moment. And so I've had the good fortune to be a part of it. But yeah, we've had tremendous facility upgrades. That doesn't mean we're done. And
of course, I'd imagine.
Staffing wise, when I first got here, not every head coach was full time. Every head coach is full time. So those are the moments.
I thought you kind of had to be full time doing that. Okay.
Well, it is a full time job, but that doesn't mean schools have it set up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I thought it was just a given that it was.
No, it comes down to finances, and so I would say some of the stuff that we still have work to do, and again, we keep it in perspective. We know what moment higher ed's in right now. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but we need full-time assistants. We still need some facility upgrades. We need some operational dollars. But our coaches find a way to get it done. And I think our department does a tremendous job stretching the dollar. And so that's also something that we've accomplished over the years.
And that is an awesome, facility. I have to walk by it all the time. Yeah. And I remember watching it. When I first started, it was the child care center. Yeah. And watching it get built with the construction, and it seemed like it dragged on. But then when you look at it, you're like, oh, okay, I see why now. It's pretty state of the art. And it's kind of cool because a lot of schools look the same. Like if you were to go back to a school 15 years later, you're like, wow, this hasn't changed much, Yeah. Whereas Skidmore seems to be progressive in that regard too, as things are
it's funny you say
improving.
That. We've had alums come in and say the locker rooms look exactly the same as when I was here. And I'm like,
not everything's going to be.
But that's the very thing that we're working on next. So our next goal is that every team eventually have their own locker room, so that there's not sharing.
There are some split locker rooms now.
Well, they get it for their season.
Yeah,
and then they have to get out. We want them to be able to have it for the entire year. So we need to have enough locker rooms to be able to do that. And so we have the new ones from McCaffrey-Wagman. We've upgraded.
Where's baseball dress? Because I know they're off campus.
No, they're in McCaffrey-Wagman, and then they drive over to the field.
Okay, I was going to say, because there's just the 2 dugouts, and that's pretty much it over there. So.
But that's a fantastic facility.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah. I did a baseball game a couple weeks ago. And I looked at it, I was like, wow, like the turf, kind of like it's not like dirt, it's like a turf kind of and I was like, that's pretty cool,
It's amazing.
So, and even the press box is, new, neat,
very
nice looking. Yep. So, and that's the one thing too, is Peter, I know he likes Peter. Well, he likes Pete. Mom calls him Peter. I remember that interview. But Pete told me that a lot of the students, which I like too, because I don't know if you guys have a broadcast journalism program with a sports media aspect, but there are some students now that are doing games.
Yes.
Which when I came in, they could have been, but I don't remember there were, right? No. And so he's like, yeah, students do baseball and students do. So I'll pop on and I'll listen to the kids doing the baseball and I'll listen to, I know hockey, I think has a student do it every once in a while. And I'm like, okay, that's cool too, that there's some interest in it now.
We had 2 students doing a baseball game. This was at the beginning of the season.
This year.
This year, okay. Right? So I'm standing in the press box and all of a sudden there's a knock on the door and it's a guy with a pizza.
Huh.
And he's like, he had a name and I'm like, nobody in here's got that name. And I said, maybe check down in the bleachers, like thinking somebody Grubhubbed it, right? He goes down into the bleachers, and I said, look, if nobody's taking it, I'll take it, we'll buy it, and we'll give it to the students, right? He comes back up, and I go, what would you find out? And he's like, well, I'm on the phone with the guy right now, and here it was, a listener heard our students on the radio. They were talking about pizza. And so he ordered them a pizza and had it delivered to the field. Like, how fantastic!
Well, I know the guys that sit next to me in the basketball games, Dick and the other guy. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Don.
Yeah, yep. They're great. I know they're listening now. They listen every week as well. But it's great to see that now that there's some students that are interested in doing it as well. Obviously, I can't be at all the fields at all the times. I mean, I do want to expand out and do some other things, but I'm never gonna be like, oh, they're doing baseball. I want to do baseball. No, that's great that they're doing baseball. Well, and I like the fact that there's some interest in that now.
Agreed.
You know, and I listen to them. You know, I listen to. You know, I'll write little notes. Hey, maybe you should change that. Maybe you should fix that. You know, but there's that interest there that there wasn't back then. So that's cool. And I like to think maybe. I'm a pretty humble dude, but I like to think maybe I had some influence on that. Maybe a little bit.
Well, I think probably a lot because you were the first one. Like, it started with basketball, right? And you coming on board. Yeah. And then everybody wanted it, but of course we don't have the funding for that.
Oh yeah, sure. And I did it freelance for a 6 years or something. Yeah. So
every coach could find their own person if they wanted, and so we had
And it was great. I had some students. It's tough to do games by yourself too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm used to it now, but I wish I had a color guy or something, But I know that it's great that now students have some of that they want to do, because at Hartwick it was the same thing. I was a student broadcaster and I started doing football. And you talk about a funny story. You guys don't have football, so I want to do football. I miss doing football. So I called them up. I was like, alma mater, everything. I was like, yeah, I'm class of 2010. I've worked in radio for 20 years or little under 18 years now. I've done this. I work with Skidmore. I do blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, that's great if you want to come down on, Saturdays and work with them. And I'm like, work with them? And they're like, yeah, we have students do it. They said, we can't pay you to come do it because we'll just have them do it, and they get credit for it for the program. So, but if you want to come work with them and everything. And then I'm like, they never had that before. Like, I was the first one. And now they have students doing it. So I kind of created a monster, shot myself in the foot a little bit, but I like that that's doing, that's happening. Because I know, like, for me, the media aspect, like, I started when I was a kid, I would play like Madden, for example, on mute and just play and do the game myself. Yeah. My mom would walk in, who are you talking to? Yeah. And I'm just, no, I'm doing the game. So for me, the passion was the broadcasting and the media aspect of sports. And, knowing that a playing career professionally probably wasn't going to happen. So how can I contribute back to that? Yeah. And, I've always liked, I've been at programs where students, they couldn't get any students that wanted to do it. So like I said, the fact that they are doing it now is great.
Fantastic.
So I do like it. I'm never going to knock them for it. It's good stuff. I wish I knew who some of them were. I don't know a lot of the students, but I'd shoot them text or something, be like, hey, maybe say this different, but it sounds good. I give them little tips and pointers. Yeah. But and so we've got about 15 minutes or so. I don't know if you've been following the what I've been doing with some of the other coaches and players, but we have this thing. I used to call it fourth quarter free throws, and basically what that is it's just top of the head, not even thinking. First thing that comes to mind. It was like a little activity that I was doing with them. But it's fun with the students because they say some wild stuff. Okay. But like for you, I had a couple more. It wasn't quite as crazy. But and I'll put this on because fourth quarter free throws is a segment for the YouTube, so I'll put that on. But just again, top of the head. So you're a movie person.
Yes, somewhat.
Okay. So your favorite sports movie, if you had one.
Moneyball.
Oh, okay. Relatively on the newer side of them.
I also like 42.
That's a good one. That's fantastic. I think Coach Burke said Hoosiers, I believe.
Oh yeah, and,
I think Bostic was. He got game, I believe it was. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It was back in February, but I'm trying to remember.
But Hoosiers is a good one.
Hoosiers is solid.
Yeah. Yep.
So, favorite Skidmore athletic moment? I know there's probably been so many.
Wow. There are so many. Too many. I think I can't even. I wish I could just come up with one off the top of my head, but
that's fine.
Yeah.
Favorite spot in Saratoga?
Well, it's got to, it's Skidmore's campus.
Oh, it is the campus.
Absolutely, because I'm not in Saratoga.
So you don't just go around town and hang out, really? You're more in
I'm here and I'm here. Yeah.
So you're here and you're home. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Fair enough.
It's. I mean, not to say that I've never gone to a restaurant or anything.
Well, no, of course,
do, but like this campus is beautiful.
So I'm not going to find you on Caroline Street.
No.
Okay.
Ever.
Fair enough.
Ever. But the pond is awesome, right?
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I do like that. Coffee or tea or energy drinks?
Diet Coke.
Okay.
Oh.
So you got to have the caffeine, but okay.
Look our student athletes just gifted me at our sports recognition night, Monday night, 19 cases, one from each team.
Okay.
On my way out the door.
So Coke,
no,
not Pep. Diet Coke, yeah. But I mean, like the Coca-Cola products, not
Correct.
Pepsi.
Correct.
And you could taste the difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, because some people can't.
No.
Okay.
It's distinct.
Okay, and Diet Pepsi is so very different.
Very different.
Okay. I'm not a huge soda drinker. I drink a lot of energy drinks.
I wish I wasn't,
but I like it.
We all have our vice.
I used to be, but I've transitioned more to energy drinks for my caffeine now, which also probably isn't good for my heart. But what are you gonna do?
I wish I would say I could drink water, but I don't.
I can't. If I'm gonna do water, it's got to be like Propel or something with flavor in it. So the one thing you think, and again, could be many, but one thing that makes Skidmore. It doesn't necessarily have to be athletics.
Mm-hmm.
Skidmore. One thing that makes Skidmore unique.
The fact that it's a liberal arts college in Saratoga Springs. Most liberal arts colleges are not in a city or town. They're in the middle of nowhere.
Well, sure, like Hartwick or whatever.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's not a there's a community around it.
So that you've got a relatively big town around it.
Yes, and there's a downtown and there's businesses and that's
what makes it unique. Okay.
That's a selling point for sure.
The most underrated part of running an athletic department.
Underrated. I think that if you don't know what an administrator does, then you assume that they are just at games.
Okay.
And that's all that they do is make sure that the game happens.
There's so much behind the scenes.
And there's so much behind the scenes that
I had that discussion with Pete Fisher too. I was like, people see you at the games. Oh, I gotta remember now. That was back in February, but
might have been something similar.
It was, yeah.
Like
that there's so I see you walking around the games, but what you do outside of just coming up and making sure this is on, there's so much more to that.
And that
goes into it.
All day long, 5 days a week, and then at nights and weekends, that's when the games happen, right?
Now, do you book you as athletic director? I don't know would do it, but like the schools that they play outside of conference games, the non-conference. I know basketball's played Plattsburgh the last however many years. Do you book those games?
No, they schedule. We let
the coaches schedule. Okay, because I was going to say that there's been a couple where I'd like to see some. There's some matchups I'd like to see. I didn't know who to talk to though on that.
So coaches do their schedules, and then their schedules get approved. I mean, it's all got to fit in their budget, right? And how they're transporting there. And
there's been a couple that we see every year. Middlebury, we see a lot. Williams on the women's side, we see a lot. Because I was going to say if you had a part in that. What was going on with the women's basketball schedule in the beginning of the season?
Oh, look, that's David. That's all
7
David.
Nationally ranked teams out of 9.
And look, he's not straying too far from that, but that's all about MPI.
Oh, yeah. No.
Right?
Well, so I told him, and he told me it's because I want them to be ready for conference play and battle tested. And you look at the run that they made at the end of the year. You start the season at 1-9, and then all of a sudden, you're looking at it like, oh,
but you have to be super confident that you can mentally get them to that point, right? Because otherwise, at 1-9, they're like season's done,
rolling over. Yeah.
So,
and I saw that, and I'm like, man, that's probably the toughest non-conference schedule I've ever seen.
But he also pulled off a couple of wins in that
crazy,
moment too, right? So
he really did.
That gives you the momentum to keep going.
Tufts was a big one, also.
Yes. Williams.
Williams, we've had their number the last couple of years, actually. But Williams, I remember in the beginning was kind of a nemesis for us in the beginning of the time.
Sure.
But
anytime you can beat
any of those NESCAC, they're fantastic schools as well. I know Bowdoin is always crazy. We play them. NYU is good. So then for Skidmore, what's one thing that I guess I guess the word would be legacy. What's the one thing you want people to remember your time here for? Like, when they look back and say, okay, her 20 years here on campus, what's if there's one thing they had to pick, what's the one thing you want to be, I guess, remembered for?
Remembered for, I think, not giving up the fight, right? I mean, like the steady guy to improvements on a consistent basis, right? Of whether it be operational dollars, staffing, facilities. I mean, this steady growth. I mean, we did none of this growth happened overnight. It happened over a time period of 21 years. And at least during my time, right? 21 years. And so, we weren't, we just didn't achieve it overnight. It was a steady growth, and we didn't give up, and we know who we are, and we know the journey to get there, and it's going to take some time, but it was just steady and not losing sight of what the goals were.
D1 team that you root for outside of Temple?
D1 team, UConn women's basketball.
UConn women's, okay.
And that wasn't always the case.
No, okay.
Now, Gino had, I didn't like the way the season ended. He
kind of had a little bit of a rough
I wasn't in love with that. But he's grown on me over time, and maybe that's because his attitude has changed as he's gotten older.
Now,
right?
I thought for some reason, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but I thought for some reason you liked Ohio State for something.
Love Ohio State.
Okay, did you have like a?
My daughter.
I was going to say you had a family member that played there. Okay, because I was going to say I remember Ohio State for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think of sort of East Coast, right? But sure. I'm going to cheer for Ohio State in every sport. So that's a given.
Not that team up north, right? As they call it.
Oh, look, and I don't hate them as much as I'm supposed to. I mean, but I didn't go to Ohio State, so that's why I don't hate.
What's Temple's biggest rival?
Penn State.
Is it not? Okay.
No. That's who it was.
That's who it was then too. So it's always
Penn
been
State
Penn
and
State.
Everything. Okay. I don't know.
So the Nittany Lions are a team that you would not really ever root for in anything.
Ever.
Okay. Fair enough.
Anyone that knows me knows that that's absolutely true.
Arguably, probably the most.
And can I just say that's because I'm jealous, right? Of their school spirit, of everything they have, right? They also
100,000 seat stadium.
They also beat us my junior year in the national championship. That's who we beat the following year. So that's the rivalry. But I can admit that it's purely based on
with my parents, it was Georgetown because that was Syracuse, Georgetown. Yeah. With me, honestly, it's Ithaca.
Okay.
Ithaca, out of my 4 years, we played them twice a year. They were Empire 8 school. Beat them probably twice in the 4 years. And then all of a sudden, they joined Liberty League, and I'm like, I see this team again. So I hear what you're saying there.
The natural rivalries are what makes athletics.
Makes it great. Yeah,
fantastic.
And you can hate them without.
Which is why it's so disappointing the Big East is no longer around for basketball.
I was at the
or I would even say, in Philly, the Big Five.
Okay, that was a while ago, but
yeah.
Okay. Huh. Well, I was at the Syracuse UConn, the 7 overtime game. I went to it thinking, it's gonna be a standard basketball game, and it was 3 a.m. before we got out of there. But that was fantastic. And the Big East was awesome. And those kind of rivalries, I think you don't see as much anymore. In the D1 level. Everything's kind of has like a corporate polish to it now.
Well, there is, and the conferences are all messed up. Like
the ACC, Atlantic Coast Conference, they got Cal and Stanford in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Look at the Big Ten.
Yeah, UCLA and Oregon, and
so I mean, there's no geographic. Now. And there's no geographic proximity, right? That hasn't impacted Division III in the same way. Yeah, absolutely. But it hasn't impacted Division III the same way. But you can see that it's starting to.
Is it okay?
Well, I mean, people are breaking up, right? The
Empire 8 imploded. Yeah.
Well, and so did the SUNY conference. We've got SUNY schools leaving the SUNY conference. For financial reasons, I understand, but you never thought that would happen.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because the same roommate I was talking about, who's the D coordinator at Hartwick, Mark Theophil, if you're listening, big ups there. But he told me, like, when we first started, it was, Empire 8 was Hartwick, St. John Fisher, Alfred, Utica, Springfield, Norwich, Ithaca back in the day, all that. Now he's recruiting against Brockport, Cortland, Mooresville, Buff State, and he's like, I get these kids who it's like, hey, I can go to school for $52,000 a year or $10,000 a year, and he's like, it just makes it tough to have SUNYs in your conference when you're a private school, and he's like, that makes it frustrating as well. So I can see that,
but
geographically.
You never thought that was going to happen.
No, I thought that they were separate.
I think the only conference, maybe two conferences, Ivies and the NESCAC. No one's coming in, no one's leaving, right?
No, yep.
Right? But I would have said that about, the Atlantic 10. Temple was in the Atlantic 10.
They were.
And
they're not anymore?
No.
What are they, Conference USA? Or?
No, they're like American.
AAC.
Yes.
Yeah, AAC
and I'm like,
now.
what is that all about, right?
Okay, the Owls. Yeah, the football team's been a little.
But you can't even follow it. Football, basketball, you can't follow it the same way.
In basketball. I mean, I know they made the tournament a couple years ago.
They shouldn't be in that conference.
No, yeah.
And that's just me.
Yeah.
I don't know what financial decisions went into that. So
sure.
That's just me owning that. I mean, but as an alum, I look at that and go, what?
Why? Yeah.
What do you mean you're not competing against
these bigger names? Really,
Rutgers was in there. Penn State was in the Atlantic 10.
VCU I think used to be.
They used to be after. They weren't part
Richmond,
of the original. St. Joe's.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the old Atlantic
St.
10
Bonaventure.
The Bonnies.
Rhode Island, UMass. UMass is right in the MAC now.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember these conferences. Yeah, not the 1A, not 2As.
Yes, it doesn't make sense though.
Yeah, everyone's changing and blowing up and all that stuff. So
hard to follow.
It's interesting.
So the thing is, it's hard to follow for a couple of reasons. One, you never know what conference they're playing in, and because of the transfer situation, you never are following the same team because people are jumping around left and right.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
and I guess creating new rivalries also.
I guess
in a process, because there are teams now I never cared about Duke.
No,
now I hate Duke.
Right, but it's East Coast West Coast rivalries that don't make a lot of sense.
True. I know Stanford, Syracuse's football team, not this past year but the year before, would have won the ACC regular season tournament had it not been for was a fourth down conversion or a missed kick or something against Stanford.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are they playing Stanford?
Right.
So same kind of thing.
We're set in our ways. We're old. That's all that means.
I say that all the time. I say, I'm so old. They're like, you're 37. I'm like, I feel old.
Yeah.
And the last one, because I think I heard somebody come in, so we got to properly wrap it up here. Yeah. But one that I've done with everybody, I'll give you, has nothing to do with athletics. It's to just do with a mind state. And I'll get to that in 1 second. I got to do my little PSA, and then we'll finish that off with that. And again, this episode is, we're joined by Athletic Director Gail Cummings-Danson. Since taking over in 2005, she's led the growth of a 19-team program, overseen major facility upgrades, expanding staffing, and helped to elevate both the competitive and academic success of Skidmore student-athletes, including the creation of Thoroughbred Society, as we mentioned, recognizing excellence in the classroom. Before Skidmore, she played a key role at UAlbany during its transition to Division I, and her impact on the game of lacrosse has earned her induction into the U.S. and Canadian National Lacrosse Hall of Fames. We didn't quite get to that, but I had to get that in. And so, which is a great honor as well. Again, it was the U.S. National one in 2007 and the Canadian one in 2008, which, again, to be in a National Hall of Fame for anything is awesome. But so, to finish off the fourth quarter free throws is what I've called it. Again, nothing to do with athletics, but I've asked everybody that's been on the same question. If you had to choose, and again, it's top of the head, first thing.
Yep.
If you had to choose, and it's only these two, skydive or shark cage?
Oh, my God. Well, first, let me just say I wouldn't do either because I'm afraid of sharks.
Fair enough. Okay.
And I'm afraid of heights.
Okay.
But I'm more afraid of sharks.
You pick skydive.
So, yes, I hope that means it's a tandem because...
That's well, okay, so you're different because you don't like either.
Yes.
Some people are right off the rip, like skydive. I'm like, you're insane.
No.
Because at least
it's
with
the lesser of two evils.
At least,
for me.
How?
Because I'm assuming I'm not doing it myself, so I'm going to be attached to someone
with somebody. Okay.
Who's a guide and a teacher.
Either way, my logic in it is you've got an animal.
Yeah.
That can't. You're in a ton of steel.
Never say can't.
You're in a ton of steel. Chances are. Can't get in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Worst comes to worst, the boat pulls you up, but you're in. You got that steel protector. Okay. Yeah. You jump out of an airplane at 10,000 feet. You pull that, it doesn't open.
Yeah.
And with my luck, it wouldn't open. People look at skydive videos and they're like, oh, they're floating through the air and it's so great. 30 seconds, you're on the ground.
Let me just say, either way, I'm having a heart attack, so it doesn't matter.
Fair enough. I'm
done. I'm afraid of both.
So she pleads the fifth on that, which is good because again, if you pick skydive and you're not. Again, you're in a different situation. But if you pick skydive, out of the
So
blue,
you're telling me
insane.
you're going in the Shark Tank?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No,
Well, my first
Since
love.
Jaws, I'm not going in.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, my first love was actually, I wanted to be marine biology, marine ecology, and study the animals and all different things, but terrible at math. I took the Math B regions 3 times, and my best grade was a 65. I'm just not a math person. English, history, great.
Yeah.
Language, great. Bio, all that. Math could not do. So I go down to University of Tampa, and I'm like, yeah, I want to be a marine biology program. I want to be the shark cage guy. I want to be those guys on Discovery. And they're like, yeah, well, you need pre-calc and calculus and, organic chem and all this. And I'm like, why? I just want to study the animals. Yeah. And they're like, no, well, you got to, measure the tectonic shift in the plates and the this and that. I'm like,
know what the current is, how fast
I was like, I'm gonna fail out of it. I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna pursue sports. So that's why for me it's always been a passion. But I also have terrible luck. I don't know if you can see this right here. I have the worst luck on the planet. So for me, that parachute would not open. I'd be the one that would not open for.
My fingers would be crossed for it, but yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm not going in a Shark Tank.
But either way, so again, this was Between the Reins, and Gail Cummings-Danson is retiring at the end of this academic year, so we will have somebody new, and I will have to deal with somebody new next year, unfortunately. But again, thank you for coming on with us. I've been waiting to talk to you.
Yep.
There's so much more that we could get into, but I only have an hour slot this year. So hopefully we covered what we needed to cover, and the people can learn a little bit more about you that maybe they didn't know. Yeah. So that's the whole purpose of this program. So once again, voice of the Thoroughbreds, Chris McSwiggan here with you. Gail signing off, and we will see you guys next week. I actually have Brad Campion coming on next week, so that'll be fun. He was supposed to be before, but he had to reschedule. So yeah, Brad's a good guy.
Yeah.
So again, stay tuned. Same time, same place, same station next week.